So let's start, okay? Hi everybody, and thank you all to be here today. I'm Andrea, and also in this picture looks like Chuck Norris. I'm a serious Android developer and mobile delivery manager in Synesthesia. Today, with my friends Adam, we will talk you about building Android Studio plugin. So, now let's see what we will see today in this talk. This talk is divided in 3 chapters. The first one is why, is a story behind our Android Studio plugin. In the second chapter, Adam will show you some technical stuff. So he will show you how to create your plugin. And in the last chapter, I will show you how to release your Android Studio plugin. So let's start with our story. This is the story that prompted us to create our Android Studio plugin. And maybe among of you, there are someone that is asking, Android Studio do a lot of stuff, a lot of cool stuff. Why I need a plugin? And for answer this question, I need to show you 2 important slides. The first one is this one, because it's related about 2 fellas that work in Synesthesia with us that have explained our structure behind our apps in Synesthesia. And the other slide is this one that explains one example of the structure. What they want to mean is when we want to create, for example, the login process, or we need to call an API and show the data inside the recycle view, or maybe tap on an item on the recycle view and show a detail. Every time we have 3 examples, but we have always the same structure. So we have always one activity, at least one fragment, one presenter, and one interface or MVP view. So, of course, the process is different because the login does some stuff completely different from the retrieving data and vice versa. But the structure is always the same. Now I want to show you what I mean when they say the structure is the same. Because we have always, for example, here you can see an hello world activity. We have an activity that extends some base class and called the replace fragment. This is a function that loads a fragment inside the activity. We have always a fragment that extends some base class, again, implement an interface. And we have a presenter, and again, extend some base class, use an MVP view interface, sorry. And at the last, we have the interface. Here, we write all the code that will be implemented in the fragment and called inside the presenter. Anyway, I don't want to focus about all this stuff because my friends have just done it. But I want to say that this is our structure. This is more or less a standard that we have, our company standard. So it's good to say we have a standard because in many companies, each developer has his standard. But for respect our standard, we have faced with some problem. For example, the first problem is when a new developer comes in the team, he don't know anything about the standard, and so it's a little bit difficult to teach everything and think that he don't forget something in the time. So we need something that help the younger developer to build and create app that doesn't crash. The second problem is when a developer inside the team, for some reason that I don't know it and I don't want to discuss today, forget the standard. Maybe happens, trust me. And this is another problem to solve, to overcome. The last problem is when a senior developer comes inside our team, for example, for a small period, and he say, you have a standard, but I have my own standard. That is quite strange. The sentence, I have my own standard, when you work in a team that have his own standard. Anyway, we need something that forces the developer to use the company standard. In the last, we have the copy and paste hell, let me say. This means that we are developer and we spend 50% of our time in copy and paste some code. And the other 50% of time is spent in searching on Stack Overflow what copy. So we need something that let the developer to don't copy and paste every time the same boring code, because many times we have a class with some code that is useless, and you say, why you have put the code here? And say, I don't know, but I thought that it's important. Or vice versa, you don't put some code that is important. So we have our structure, our standard, and the problem related to our standard. So, back into our history. We have done a meeting for discuss how to fix it, how to overcome this problem. And we have found in that meeting 2 types of solution. The first one was to create a script, maybe a Python script, that you can run it on a command line, opening a terminal. But it was not so much user-friendly because you must remember all the parameters and it's a little bit ugly, correct? And the second option, it was, of course, an Android Studio plugin that helped the developer with an interface. The developer can interact with the interface, and it is also more easy. Now, I want to show you just a preview of our plugin. This is what we have made. This is the Android Studio Common UI, IDE. And we start pressing, open the context menu from the UI package name and navigate through the new synesthesia MVP activity. And boom, here we are, our plugin. In the first part, we have the package name. The package name is auto-detected from the place where we have started the plugin. In this case, we can see in the end UI. Now the developer can put a new package name because sometimes you need to create the login process and you want to put all the classes inside, isolated, in a package name. In the next step, we can write the activity name. And the plugin here comes to help the developer, and he say down here, don't add activity to the name because I will do it for you. So this is helpful for the developer. Then below we can choose the base activity. This is the superclass. This is the superclass that I showed you before when I say an activity extend something. This is that something. And when the developer choose a value inside the drop-down, the image on the left change, so help the developer understanding what he is using. Okay, then he can choose to write activity title, one activity title, and write something. This string will be the string that the user will see in the toolbar. So the plugin can create a string and use it for the toolbar. The 2 checkbox, portrait orientation and launcher activity, drive the plugin in creation, modification, for better say, the manifest. So with the first check, the plugin will create an item in the manifest and force the orientation in portrait mode. The second one, the launcher activity check, add the intent filter for make your activity be the first one that you launch when you press on the icon, on the launcher, on your phone. And now, press finish. And here we are, boom baby, put your hands up for the plugin. He has created all the 4 classes. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see deeper what we have created, because he created all the classes, as I said before. It modified the manifest, putting the screen orientation porting, but it add this item activity on the manifest at the bottom. In the end, it creates a login activity that use in the set toolbar title one string, LBL title login. And that string is exactly the string that we have declared in the string XML. Now we can go ahead. We can see here the login fragment that extends the base class and played some layout. That layout is created in the layout directory under the res folder. This structure is extremely based on our, you hear me? See? Yes? Okay. Okay. This structure is strictly related to our, this plugin is strictly related to our structure. It creates an empty scaffold for the developer, and the developer needs only to fill the empty scaffold. Prova. Ma posso provare? Can you hear me? I can sing a song? Okay. Okay. This structure, this plugin creates an empty scaffold that is based on our structure. So now, a younger developer or a developer that forget the standard, when create the process, can find all the classes, and it also it only needs to fill the classes with the right code. Okay. Reaching this result, it wasn't easy for some reason. One of these is the documentation. Now, I don't want to be misunderstood. What I want to say is that on the web you can find a lot of documentation, but few, let me say, example in action. I want to see that you can find a lot of stuff, a lot of documentation, but when you try to do something, you become crazy because you try something, it doesn't work. So for this reason, we have decided to doing this talk and give you an empty project on GitHub that contains all the source code that you need for create a plugin. For this reason, our company plugin is not on GitHub. Also because I say that it's based on our structure that is completely different from your structure. But now Adam will show you some classes that we have used, some technical things, and all the things that Adam will show you are based on this repo that you will find the link at the end of the talk. Okay, now let's start to see something much interesting for the developer. But what will you see now is just a taste of all the power of the IntelliJ plugin. For some time reason, of course, we cannot talk about everything, all the actors, all the classes, but the main class that you needed for create your plugin. So, okay, Adam.
So let's start with part number 2. First of all, we advise to you to use IntelliJ Community Edition mainly because it's free and it's the best tool for this case. This is the tool that is also made for creating the plugin. So please use this. Now, when we start creating our plugin, we face a choice. We face a choice, and we have two basic choices. We can create our plugin by using an IntelliJ platform plugin. This is the standard way of doing that. And the other possibility we have is to use Gradle for our plugin. Probably you are already familiar with Gradle because it's the building tool for Android projects. Now, both of these ways are okay, yet Gradle offers some more benefits, such as continuous integration with Jenkins that we will see at the end of this talk, and and it also makes dependency management much easier, as you may know. By the way, we chose the Gradle way when we were creating our project. So this talk is going to be a little pragmatic, so we spare you the theory behind it. And we want you to see the plugin as a container, as a box of different parts that we can mix together to solve your business problem. That is mainly saving you time from typing the code you already know. To get the same result Andrea showed you before, we use an action and a template. We are also going to explain to you wizards and live templates. There are many more things that you can put inside your plugin, but we are not going to discuss them here, mainly because of time constraints. But by the way, you could, for example, connect your coffee machine to your IDE by using a plugin. So the possibilities are almost endless. So let's start with actions. An action is a spark that fires an operation. We do that by pressing key combos on our keyboard. Thus, we are activating shortcuts. When we click on the toolbar icons, or when we choose a voice from the menu. We can create as many actions as we want, and we organize them into groups, thus creating a hierarchy that makes the navigation easier for the user. Now, before I continue with actions, I need to introduce another essential concept that is actually a file, and its name is plugin XML. That is at the very heart of every plugin project you create or use, because it contains all the vital information about the plugin itself. Now, usually you can find this file in meta information that is under resources. And as I said, it contains the vital information because it has the unique identity of your plugin, the contact information of the developer itself that is, essential so other developers can contact you in case of problems. And another essential element here is this idea version, which states the minimum version number of the IDE that is compatible with your plugin. So if you are going to release your plugin to the general public through the JetBrains repository of plugins, you have to define this number. For example, the latest version of Android Studio was 1.6.2. You can check out the versioning number online. So as I was talking about actions, let's zoom in and let's see how we define this action inside plugin XML file. So in our example, we defined 4 actions, and we grouped them into a group, and we tell the group where it has to show up by using an add to group tag. For example, here we are telling it to show in the new group. So when we click on new, it's going to show up there, just as in the next slide. So we click on new, and we see the Droidcon group with the actions we defined. For each action, we have to define 3 basic elements. That is the unique identity of the action itself, the class that defines the behavior of our action, and the text that tells the name of the action itself. We can also define the icon and a short description. So for this wizard action, we defined an icon with a wizard. And we can define the group in a similar way with similar tags and elements to the actions. We implement the behavior of an action by extending the anAction class and by overriding the action performed method, where we implement most of our logic. That could be opening a template, opening a wizard, or connecting to our coffee machine. We can also implement the update method that could tell the action where to show up in our IDE. So you may want the action to only show up when you're working inside a Java source directory, but you don't want it to show when we are working with XML files. So let's see what we can do with actions. We can open a template. You are probably familiar with templates, and they are a great way to spare you from the copy and paste madness that even our team faced before. So here we are opening a template. And this is basically the same thing that Andrea showed you before. It is a user interface and it is a template. So how do they work? In each template, we have three main actors. That is, we have a template XML that defines the user interface we see on the screen when we open it. We have FTL files, which are placeholder files that the engine processes. And we have a recipe that tells the engine what to do with FTL files. We will see an example of processing an FTL file in the next slide. And in the end, we get an output that, in this case, consists of a layout XML file, an activity that is a Java file, and a strings XML that is merged into the main strings XML file in your project. So let's see one of these in detail. It almost looks like a regular Java file. You can define any text in here, but the most important thing is that you define variables in here that are later substituted with the values the engine gets from the UI. Okay? So I define the activity name, the class to override. I can even use functions that are defined in the engine, and all of this is processed when you click the finish button in the template. Okay. We can also use actions to open wizards. This is a great tool if you have a complex process and you want to divide it into many steps. We open one now. Go to Droidcon, wizard. This is a basic example, so we want everyone to understand it. We have two steps, and in the first step, we put the first number. In the second step, we put the second number. And at the end, when we press finish, we just show the sum of these numbers. It's basic, but it makes the point. Okay, it's loading, right? Next. Okay. So how do wizards work? In wizards, we have two parts. We have the steps that we have the steps, and we have the model. Each of these steps defines their own user interface and their own data checking, and the model is there to carry the data from one step to another. So when we execute our logic at the end, all of the data is in the model. So in our case, it was adding 2 with 4, and at the end we get 6. Let's see how we can implement that. We will skip the steps, but we will focus on the model, which is the most important part. So we have the two numbers, and the method that is executed as the end is this one. I will get back in a moment. I will get back, and I forgot that when you press next, each of these steps tells the model, actually write to the model their data with this method. So the step number 1 tells its first number to the model, and so for the second number. And at the end, we just show this little dumb message. Now here comes my favorite part. You because it is a great time saver. You are probably familiar with that because it's implemented almost everywhere in IntelliJ and Android Studio, and I'm talking about live templates. Now, let's see one of them in actions. Okay, we start typing the name of live template, and it expands to a snippet of code that we define. This is one, we can define many live templates for each language we choose. So this one is for Java, and this other one is for example, for XML. Just note that you are typing a couple of characters, and it expands to a big snippet of code that you are probably familiar with and you are writing over and over. Now, we can define them inside settings under live templates by creating a group. It's important to choose the name that you can recognize, because only this way you can find it inside the IntelliJ home directory. That is important for integrating live templates into your plugin. We define the snippet of code and the name. We can also define some basic functions for our live template, and we can integrate our live templates into our plugin by, first of all, defining it as a component in our plugin XML with just 3 statements of XML, and by defining the class that tells the IDE where it can find the live templates itself. Now, this is really important, because this way, by distributing live templates with your plugin, you are giving your entire team this tool that is a good way to standardize the way you are doing things. And of course, you get always the benefit of saving time and not repeating yourself. So this is chapter 3. It's up to you.
Thank you. Okay, guys. Now you know all the secrets about the plugin, so you sure have created your own, and now you just need to deliver your plugin. So, okay. If you have created your project, as Adam said in, I think, the first slide, in the type IntelliJ platform plugin, you will create a jar file. Sorry, there's a little mistake. If you are created your plugin project as a Gradle project, you will create a zip file. So let's show you. This is the IntelliJ, so this is the project created in the IntelliJ platform plugin version, and you have a specific item inside the context menu. This voice will run a task that will create a jar file. Otherwise, if you have your project that is a Gradle project, you have a dedicated task called build plugin that create a zip file. This is not important if jar or if zip, but you can deliver that file manually to your team, or you can create an account on the JetBrains plugin store, okay? And you can upload the jar or the zip file anyway. And you can submit your plugin to the JetBrains team. This means that after a few days of checking code, of submission, the team of JetBrains will say, okay, your plugin can be downloaded on the store. And if you open the specific view on Android Studio, you can download it inside your Android Studio. This is one option. Anyway, in our team, we have created a different type of delivering. It was just a little bit is an automatism that doing the delivery for us. It starts from the source code. This is the source code of our plugin that is pushed on a Git repo, and with the benefit of a Jenkins job will take the source code, and with these 2 tasks, clean and build plugin, it will build the zip file that will be uploaded on a custom server. And this is a screen that we have inside the Android Studio on our machine, that you can add this URL, this screen you can reach this screen on this URL inside your Android Studio. And so what I mean is that you can configure your Android Studio to link a server that receives automatically the zip file when the Jenkins is run. So, recap, the developer make a new feature, so it means new code. Push the code on Git and run a Jenkins job that take the last commit or some commit that you want, build the source code and generate a zip file that is pushed on the server. So with this configuration, all the developer can receive the common notification in top right of Android Studio that say, hey, we have a new version of a company plugin. So some last few tips. The first one is when you will configure your IntelliJ, please use the SDK inside IntelliJ because this will avoid a lot of problem of compatibility. And the second one is to use, as Adam said, the community version of IntelliJ because it has all that you need, all the features that you need for building your plugin as we have done. Finally, this is our repo where you can find all the source code based on the example shown by Adam. And feel free to contact us for share your experience or for doing some comments if something is not so clear. Okay, I can go ahead. So just a little bit recap. Today we have talked in building Android Studio plugin. I have tell you a story, the story that prompted us why we have created our plugin and the problem we have faced and overcome with an Android Studio plugin. Adam has shown you in the chapter 2 how to build a plugin, and he has showed you action template, wizard, and live template. But he has not talked about a lot of stuff for some problem of time, of course. But if you have some question, feel free to ask something. We are all around for 2 days of conference. You can find it on the desk of Synesthesia, and don't worry, ask, just ask. In the last chapter, I have told you the releasing part manually or with some little automation. Keep on touch. As I said before, this is our email, so write if you have some question. Before I finish our talk, I need to give a big thanks to Lucy because she has trained all the Synesthesia minions, and to Gabriele that has all this word art for the slides for me and for other colleagues. Big thanks to the big family, and thank you all. The talk is end.